stamping friends, it's Sherry Parker coming to you on Wednesday, February 7th. Thank you for joining, whether it's live or on the replay. I do appreciate it. I hope you'll enjoy the projects tonight. Got a couple cute lavender projects. I'm wearing some lavender tonight. Not that I really actually meant to do that, but I just kind of figured that out a few minutes ago. Anyway, thanks again. Wanted to just mention a couple things and then we'll make our cards. So celebration, we know I've been talking about it for months. Celebration's been going on. You're probably familiar with our catalog. You get free items with purchase, and Stampin' Up! Just announced some additional items that they will be offering for free. So this is a printout of some of these items. You can also go to either the Stampin' Up! Website or my website at sherrythomas.stampinup.net, and you can see the different additional items that are free with purchase. So it's a great opportunity to stock up on things, and I certainly try to stock up this time of year and then get some free things in the process. So that's the first thing I wanted to mention. The second thing is that Susie Brunk and I are having our annual stamp camp. It's coming up in a few weeks. There are 3 more days to register. I thought I would show you a couple of the cards. I've got a few of them here. I've got a little fun fold card here using some celebration. Hey, Susie. And Susie is actually watching. So she is my partner in crime, and we have done many stamp camps together. It's always a lot of fun. Cute cards, get a chance to see everybody, so hope you'll come. That was one of the cards. This is another one. It's a little tease for tonight, lavender. It's a gift card holder or just a note card holder. And here's another one using the hexagon punch. This I made a wedding card, but we'll have different greetings, and that applies to really all the cards. So you're not tied to a certain greeting. You can customize it to whatever you need. So there are 3 of the cards. You'll be making 10, 2 each of each design. Total of 20 cards and envelopes, if you choose to have envelopes. We are charging a little bit more this year. Envelopes are an add-on just to try to keep our costs down. So everything's more expensive, from groceries to even stamping supplies. So appreciate it. If you are interested, let Susie and me know. The 10th is our registration deadline. So Saturday, February 24th is Stamp Camp, and there's a morning session, 8:30 to 11:30, or an afternoon session, 12:30 to 3:30. So we have a couple spots left for the morning and several for the afternoon. So just let us know. All right, I think that's all I wanted to mention, and then we'll just jump right in and get stamping. All right, I'm gonna flip the camera over. All right, so lavender. I know it's only February, but as soon as Christmas is over, like, I'm so ready for spring. So this particular suite that is in our mini catalog, the perennial lavender, is so pretty. I knew this was one of the ones I had to get right away when I saw it. Beautiful papers and stamps and die cuts, everything that coordinates. So tonight we'll be using the stamps and die cuts. I was challenging myself to not use designer series paper. I always do for every card, just because it's so beautiful and it can make really any card beautiful super simply. Hi, Mary Beth, coming from Florida, my friend. And so I thought, you know what, I'm going to try to make a card without using designer series paper tonight, because, you know, it makes making a card super simple, but I also wanted to show how simple and beautiful a card can be, even if you don't happen to have the coordinating designer series paper. So this is the suite, the perennial lavender suite. Everything is available at this time except for the die cuts that coordinate with the painted lavender stamp set. So I believe everything else is available currently. So tonight we will be using the painted lavender stamp set, and then the perennial postage, die cuts, and then the greetings from the perennial postage stamp set. So that's what we'll be using tonight. And the cards we're making are these 2 cards here. So we'll start with a simple stamping, and then I'm going to show you how to use the die cuts in a slightly different way. And then similar to that, oh, the DSP is not available. Oh, Susie, well, I'm glad I'm not using it tonight. That must have just happened, or I missed it on the inventory status. Anyway, the this is essentially the same card, except I've used watercolor paper and I've used kind of a watercolor technique on this. So same basic card, just slightly different technique, and no designer series paper, which I'm really happy about since it's out right now. The good news with Stampin' Up! Is they always do replenish things that go not available. They used to put it on back order, but they've stopped doing that. So the good news is they give us a date and then we just let you know when it is available. So let's start. We'll make this one first. So the stamp set we're using is the Painted Lavender set here, and we'll use 2 stamps from that, the lavender flower and then the stem here. And then we'll also use the perennial postage dies. And this is a really cool die cut set. You know, there's tons of different sizes here. They all nest together. But one really cool thing that you can do is you can customize the size of your die cut now. And it doesn't just pertain to this particular set, but any of the rectangle dies, you could do the same thing. So you'll see here that the shape I have around my lavender is actually, it's the same height as this, but it's not the same width. So how did we do that? Well, I'll show you tonight. So we will start with this card here. And the first thing I'm going to do is actually cut out the square, or rectangle rather, with this die cut. So I will use the Stampin' die cut machine here, and I'll put just some white paper with the die cut over top. And then we'll make our little sandwich here. You'll put the top plate over it and then crank it through. It's a little unsteady. Sorry, the camera's shaking slightly. All right, I'll set that one aside and take my piece out like that. So just cut out the normal size here. So for my lavender sprig, I'm going to go ahead and stamp. I've got the lavender flower and I'm using the Gorgeous Grape ink. And I will place it a little bit left because I'm going to cut off the extra on this side here. And then I've got the stems and I'm using Lost Lagoon for the stems, like that. Super simple. So we'll set the stamps aside. And now I'm going to pull out my die cut machine again. And this time, what we'll do is, so we cut it out like this, and we want to make this a little bit smaller. So you can see the grooves in this particular one. You can line them up and just scooch it over a little bit. And I'll set it on my plate like I did last time. And then because I don't want it to move, I'll kind of scooch it over so you can see better. I don't want it to move. I'll just use a Post-it note. You can use washi tape or, you know, anything that will just kind of keep the die cut in place. So I'm gonna just put those little Post-it notes over top. It'll make it so it doesn't move. We'll put our top plate over it and then roll it on through. Take it out. And there you go. So you've got a nice decorative edge and it's customized to the size you need. Right, Susie, it is super simple. And it's great because it really, you could use it for any of these sizes. So, you know, you can customize it to whatever you need. So there's our focal point, the lavender, and we'll go ahead and we'll layer that onto some different pieces of cardstock. I've got the Gorgeous Grape and the Lost Lagoon. So those are the coordinating cardstock colors to that particular ink pad that I use. And I'll glue these down using this multi-purpose glue. I know someone was asking me last week. I do like the glue. I wasn't always a big glue person, but I've actually really learned to like it because you can get in the small little crevices if you have a real intricate die cut or something, which makes it really nice. So I did pre-cut these. I was kind of guessing on the size, on the width, because based on where I placed the lavender, that kind of dictated how wide my piece of white cardstock was. So that's all done, and now we can build our card. The greeting that I picked is from the Coordinating Perennial Postage set here. This is a really great stamp set. I mean, it has Mother's Day, and also just, you know, I'm here for you. So like kind of thinking of you. It could be, you know, big hugs, just really for maybe someone who's going through a difficult time. So I really do like this stamp set. I picked the big hugs, and I also picked the small little square die cut. I went ahead and did that in advance. And I'm going to stamp the big hugs onto my square using the grape. And then I thought, because I wanted to have it kind of pop away from the lavender a little bit, but I didn't want layers and layers of cardstock. So I'm gonna just use a little sponge dauber here and just put a little purple around the sides to give it some depth there. We used to do this sponging technique a lot in the old days, not so much anymore, but it does give it some pop, and it's really simple to do. And then last, I'm gonna go ahead and add a couple of the butterflies that are part of this stamp set as well on the side there. Okay, so to put it all together, I've got gorgeous grape cardstock. This is a half sheet that is cut vertically, and I put a score line in the middle, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And then I'm going to, you can see there's some ink there. This is the glass mat that's available when you sign up right now, but it wipes off really easily, which I love that. I have a piece of white cardstock to put over top, and I've gone ahead and I embossed it with this embossing folder here. It's called the Softly Sophisticated, and it's really, really pretty. We did use it a few weeks ago on a baby card, if you happen to see that one, but it gives a nice texture there. So that will be our card front. We'll glue that down on our card base, like that. And then I always like to add a Stampin' Dimensional. That is something, I don't know that I could make a card without Stampin' Dimensionals. I say that, but I probably could. But I do love these. So I'll put one in each corner. It's a pretty big piece. And we will raise this to the front of the card, like that. And then just a couple last touches, we'll add our grading here. Again, I'm going to use some Stampin' Dimensionals for that. And I'll offset it just a little bit to the side there. And then a little bow. This is the Lost Lagoon. I think it's called Trimmed Edges or something in the main catalog. So this is in our regular book. And I went ahead and tied a bow. Gonna adhere this bow with the glue dot. And then it would be beautiful like that, I think, but I always love to add a little bit of Wink of Stella, and I think it's real pretty, just little teeny touches on the lavender sprigs. And just gives it a little bit of shimmer. I don't know if you can really see that, but it does give it a shimmer in person. So that's the first card. And not a whole lot really, no Stampin' Dimensionals. I would probably on this one, because it's dark cardstock, I would add something for the inside. So you could add a greeting, you could leave it blank. I'm gonna stamp here for you always. And then I might even put a little butterfly in the corner too. And then I'll just go ahead and glue that on the inside. So then I think we're done with this one. All right, I hope you liked that. It was pretty basic, but also I hope you learned something new on the die cuts, because that is, you can customize. You don't necessarily, you're not locked into the sizes that come with the set. Okay, we'll set that one aside. And next we are going to do this watercolor version. So we did, Stampin' Up! Does carry watercolor paper. It is actually, I even hate to say it, it's not available right now. It's available, I think I read March 4th. It comes in a 5x7 sheet. So what I like to do is just use little accents and pieces. So I cut it and I try to get the most out of any, type of specialty paper. Little can go a long way. Yes, I saw the Gorgeous Grape is not available either. And that one, I don't think they gave a date for that. So the grape, I think Marion's talking about the grape cardstock. It's not available currently. As soon as it is, we will let you know. It's really odd how certain things like grape cardstock, I don't know how we would run out of that, but we did. So we'll keep you posted when it comes back. But for watercoloring, we do have some beautiful outline stamp sets that you can color in. They're beautiful. I grew up watercolor painting, and so I've always loved that look. And so recently my daughter and I, well, during COVID, we kind of got back into painting. And just to kind of show you, so did really simple like watercolor flowers and just scenery and things like that. But you can see these little flower sprigs. It kind of reminded me of that lavender stamp. And so if you wanted more of a watercolor look, but maybe you're not a fan of doing actual watercolor painting, you can get that same look just by adding a little bit of water to the stamp. So I'll show you what I mean. I have a piece of watercolor paper. No particular special size, but I did cut it down. And I'm using the water painters that Stampin' Up! Carries. They are simply just brushes that they screw off, and there's water in the base there. So you can get that watercolor effect by using these brushes. And it's a set of 3. There's different tips, different sizes. So I'm going to, what I did is I put some of our ink refill, just put a couple little dots here in the lid of my ink pad, and I'm gonna just get a little bit of that ink and squeeze some of the water. You can see it kind of come down, and you see how it's pooling up a little bit, and I'm making just a real pretty green background, like a wash. So that is essentially what you do when you watercolor paint. Now, because it takes just a second for water to dry, I did actually do one ahead of time. So this is already dried. And then if you wanted to get really crazy and experiment with watercoloring, on this one I used the Lost Lagoon, like I did on the first one, but I also put a little bit of the grape in just a real subtle, nice background. And then after it dries, you can stamp over top of it, and you have a real pretty watercolor wash look in the background. So, so that's how I got that background. And we'll go ahead and stamp our lavender. So we're gonna stamp the lavender right over top using the same colors we did on the first card. So the Gorgeous Grape, I'll stamp it right on top here. And then, just like the other card, with the Lost Lagoon, we'll stamp that. And then what I did is I'm kind of cheating, so I'm not really watercoloring. I'm going to use the small tip brush, and I'm just going to put just little dabs of water, just kind of ever so slightly. And you can always add more. So it's just like that same concept of working light to dark. You can always add more. And it just kind of blends it real softly. And it looks like you painted it almost. So if you add a little bit more, it might get a little blurrier, just like that. So you could get really blurry. I did one here. You can see like I added a lot of water, and so it made it really, really like fuzzy and watercolory. So, you know, it's basically how much you like And maybe you're not comfortable with that because it's not a real crisp image and not everyone likes that. But I've always loved that, just kind of watercolor look, so I like it. And then you could do the same for your stems. Now this is more of a hard line, so it's not going to blend super well. Another tip, if you stamped on, if you like it looking blended, I'll dab up some of that, you can stamp on the paper when it's really wet, but watch what happens when you do that. It's going to really spread, and it's going to be just a whole different look. And it'll keep spreading. You can see that, but you can see how it's kind of fuzzy. So really just some different looks. Here's where you let it dry and add some water. Here's where you paint or you stamp right on it when it's still wet and it looks fuzzier. So you pick what you like, and you can experiment and try different things, and that's what makes it fun, and it's just creating what you like. So I went ahead, since you've already seen me kind of glue some of this stuff together, is I glued the grape and the Lost Lagoon cardstock together, and I will put my lavender on top like that. I'm going to add a bow just like I did last time. I like it right at that intersection where the bouquet meets the stems because it hides kind of where they come together, so I like that. And grab a glue dot, put that there, and then we will do the same thing where we have it pop out with Stampin' Dimensionals. And last, I'm going to pull out the gems. I showed you that perennial lavender sweet, and these the gems, the purple shimmer gems, are part of that suite. You can also buy them separately, but it's real pretty. They have 3 different purples that all coordinate with the paper, and I've been using them, so my sheet's starting to look a little bare, but I thought I would use maybe one of each of the colors. So there's kind of a light lavender, there's a slightly darker one. Oops, using my take a pick tool, but I'm not picking it up very well. Put one in the corner, and then there's even kind of a reddish one. Oh my goodness, they're going all over the place. Maybe stick that one here. So they add a nice dimension too, the gems. And then for the inside greeting, on this one, since I don't have one on the outside, I will just put, just you mean the world to me. And that could be really for any occasion. And we'll glue that one in. And finish up our card. So we created 2 cards, similar of course, and Susie, you're funny. I'm really not an artist. I think the stamps make it easy that anyone can look like an artist. So I told you I wasn't going to use designer series paper, and I didn't. The paper that's not available, I did make some other cards using that just to show you the same setup, just a little bit different. So this one uses a piece of designer series paper in a fun fold, the one that we talked about last week. And then here's a very simple card where we did the same stamping here, and the background is just a piece of the designer series paper. So that's all that's on there. And then I did put a little strip there. So that just shows you some other uses of the same setup, card setup, just varying the background a little bit, and it can change the look of the card. So as always, if you comment or share this video, I will be drawing names in a couple days for the cards that I made tonight, and I will send those to the winners. So last week we had Georgine and Sandy, and we had, I think, also Joyce. So they won, and I did mail those cards, so I hope that they receive those probably today maybe. So if not, in the next day or two. So that's it for tonight. I really appreciate you joining, and I hope you'll try this lavender stamp set. Really beautiful. It'd be great for Mother's Day, birthday, really anything. So I hope you enjoyed the cards, and I appreciate you joining me tonight, and have a great rest of your week. Thanks. Bye.